Secretary General Charles Jonjo had said that anybody who can even imagine that Kenyatta can die is treason. So nobody would talk about Jomo Kenyatta dying. So when it finally happened, it was a shock.
Yeah.
And because of the way KBC used to work, when it was now being announced, music is the one that came, and then you start wondering, why is KBC playing this music continuously?
Back then it was VOK.
Voice of Kenya. Voice of Kenya. VOK. Until it was announced, then people were in shock.
Yeah.
And people stopped working. I remember people just went home. People would not talk to anybody. They just kept quiet.
The whole country was in shock.
The whole country was in shock. What is worth mentioning is the transition. Very peaceful. And there was no issue of even the military thinking that they can take over because Kenyatta has died. So that transition, as the professor is saying, has gone on very well with us. There were those few instances where 1971, where there was some rumor that there was attempted coup, then came later in 82. But you can see, you can say our
that was 4 years later.
Yeah, our defense forces, they have behaved very well. They have behaved in a very professional way. They have not been greedy to take over power, and they have allowed civilian government to continue. And the institutions that are led by the government and safeguarded are the ones which give satisfaction to the people. So the armed forces being satisfied with the role they are playing, and the president being able to inculcate the value of professionalism in the armed forces, would make them content, and they are not greedy for power.
Yeah.
So we have gone that far. We have come this far, and you can see the honor that the defense forces giving our lead president. Very articulate, very committed, with a lot of honor and humility. It means that as their commander-in-chief, they valued his contribution, they valued what he did for them, and how he took care of them, that all of them were satisfied. The other issue is institutions should take care of succession. If succession is done properly within the forces, and there is no witch hunting, seniority takes place,
yeah,
then nobody gets frustrated. You are not a brigadier and somebody comes from captain and becomes your boss. So that seniority is the one that gives job satisfaction, that yes, the person who has been promoted is better than me,
yeah,
or deserves that promotion. So everybody becomes satisfied. So we have come very far from that time, and those who were there when Jomo Kenyatta died, if you compare the funeral service for Jomo Kenyatta,
yeah,
and the one that is happening for Mwai Kibaki, they are more or less about the same.
More or less about the same. In terms of
organization, the defense forces taking control of everything, and you find that the respect that was accorded to President Mwai Kibaki by the defense forces is shown by the way they are treating him and this function. So I think Kibaki, as president and commander-in-chief, is something that everybody is proud of.
I mean, you see, to us, this is what we would say. Nikama ndrama, nikama video, right? Me and Victor, were you there back then? Of course you are not. You don't.
1978.
1978, were you there?
Only the prof and the engineer were there. That's why they're able to give us a story. Prof, just to ask you, perhaps somebody would argue that, Kenyans should wait for a longer period of time before we start feeling the real effect of President Mwai Kibaki's hand in government, probably 50 years to come?
I think you're absolutely right, because the part of his work in economic planning is one that had a long-term perspective. We had Kenya Vision 2030, and he urged us, as soon as economic recovery was underway, planning ministry then under Professor Peter Nyang'nyong'o, you've done 3 years of recovery, give me a perspective of our country to 2030.
Yes.
He always was very forward-looking in economic planning. Right from the beginning, he and Tumboya captained our development plans right after independence. His perspective was always of a united Kenya on a long-term perspective, and you could see our population was going to grow.
Yes.
We needed employment, we needed jobs, industrialization was important, and that's why you see something we haven't talked about a lot, Dongo Kundu, the bypass
in Mombasa,
Bazaras down to the south coast, and a duty-free manufacturing city in Dongo Kundu. All these were part of what was going to absorb into employment our young people. Konza City, and incidentally, let me say, because you talked about this highway, the toll road, the Nairobi toll road, from Machakos town of Tulimuru, which engineer is talking about, it was supposed to link with Thika Superhighway at the same time. The World Bank was supposed to provide us funding for that, for this like we're talking about 206.
That was 206.
They dropped the ball. They let us down. On the last minute, Engineer Michael Kamau was PS
for roads.
I remember very well. They said we're not going to do it because the contractor, who was Austrian, Strabag, have been associated with corruption in Russia. What did we have to do with Russia or Austria or Strabag? That is what delayed this construction. They were supposed to meet here where we are now as early as maybe 10, 15 years ago. So that then we have this east-west connection to the north-south.
So whatever we're seeing right now, the double-decker road along Uhuru Highway is a continuation of Thika Highway?
Yeah, they're supposed to blend so that you're coming from this direction to this direction. You don't have to go downtown and cause congestion.
Right. I mean, it was such you know, a lot of people say that, you know, the decision by the World Bank, you know, was politically motivated because, you know,